The reflection of an object in the mirror can be said to be neither real nor unreal. It is indescribable. Even so, the body which is reflected in the self is neither real nor unreal, but it is indescribable. This idea of things being reflected in consciousness, I'm not sure it's particularly helpful. Perhaps you find it helpful, but for me it seems to suggest that there are two things. There's the mirror of our awareness and there's something being reflected in it. And we need to get beyond that. There isn't a body which is being reflected in awareness. What the situation is that the notion of a body is being created. There are certain sensations going on, there are certain experiencings going on. There's the cognitive process. The cognitive process groups certain experiences, certain experiencings, and ascribes them to the body, to the notion of a body. The parameter, if you like, or the reason why it might group certain experiences together is according to a quality or characteristic of immediateness or intimacy. There's a sense of intimacy or immediateness. If I see somebody being slapped on the cheek, it's a totally different experiencing to what would be described as me being slapped on the cheek. Completely different. No matter how much we try and imagine what it's like for that person getting the slap on the cheek, if it happens to me, there's no comparison. So I'd be careful about this talk of reflection, the world reflecting in our consciousness, or the body reflecting in consciousness. There's no body to reflect in consciousness. So it's best just to go along with the concluding phrase here about it being indescribable. The ignorant person accepts as real whatever he sees in this world, not so the wise one. Even as a piece of wood and the water in which it is reflected have no real relationship, the body and the self have no real relationship. And I think the physicists would disagree. A piece of wood and its reflection do have a relationship, but it's a completely one-way relationship. The reflection is completely dependent. We might say it's completely dependent on the wood, but it's not, is it? It's actually completely dependent on the water that's doing the reflecting. And of course the water that's doing the reflecting is completely impassive to the wood. We're being told it's similar to the body and the self. So in our awareness, what we're getting is reflected, if you like, is the notion of a body. Perhaps we could take the word reflection actually in its mental sense. When we reflect upon something, this is it. When we reflect upon something, we develop notions. We're working with notions. And so we could say, in this case, that the body is a reflection in awareness. Getting away from the idea of reflecting in a mirror, it's actually a reflection in awareness. We're reflecting on the body. But these reflections of on the body or on an external world, they arise in awareness, but they've got nothing to do with awareness. There's no relationship whatsoever. These reflections are totally dependent on awareness, but awareness is completely indifferent to these reflections. Moreover, there is in fact no duality where such relationship could exist. One infinite consciousness alone exists without subject-object division. So we've got this infinite consciousness with reflections going on. These reflections are the cognitive process. which creates and identifies with notions. In this, diversity is imagined, and that which is untouched by sorrow believes itself to be miserable, even as one who thinks he sees a ghost sees a ghost. Who is it that thinks he or she is miserable? It's our own awareness which is doing this. It's our own awareness which is getting caught up with these notions, which is making it miserable. On account of the power of thought, this imaginary relationship assumes the force of reality. The self is ever untouched by pain and pleasure, but thinking itself to be the body, it undergoes the experiences of the body. The abandonment of this ignorant belief is liberation. They who are not thus overcome by false identification or attachment are freed at once from sorrow. It is this conditioning that is the seat of old age, death and delusion. When it ceases, one goes beyond the ocean of delusion, or what I call the ocean of notions. The conditioned mind creates bondage, even in ascetics. The unconditioned mind is pure, even in a householder. The ascetics are usually caught up with conquering the body, conquering the mind and the body. And there's some validity in that, but it's usually taken quite literally. And when you take it literally, when you're determined to conquer the body, whether it's through meditation or various yogic practices, you're fueling an assumption all the time that the body is actually real. Your focus is actually on the body, even though you're trying to transcend it all the time. So when your effort is on transcending the body, what you're doing all the time is letting in this notion of the body through the back door and making it more and more real. The mind that is thus conditioned is bondage. Liberation is freedom from conditioning, inner contact, attachment or identification. These are put in parentheses, suggesting that they are aspects of conditioning. This inner contact, which presupposes fictitious division, alone is the cause for bondage and liberation. I suppose you could say it's the notion of inner contact. I think the contact is between the attention and a notion. It's like awareness. Whenever you're aware of something, there's only the thing that you're aware of. So we could describe that as contact, but there's only one thing going on. We can call it either awareness or, how do we put this? There's either awareness or there's the object of awareness. So I think this is inner contact. And when we think about it, we create a duality, a division. This inner contact, which presupposes fictitious division, alone is the cause for bondage and liberations. Actions performed by the unconditioned are non-action. The conditioned mind acts even while outwardly refraining from it. Action or non-action is in the mind. The body does nothing. Hence, one should resolutely abandon this false inner division. Next chapter looks at this conditioning in more detail. I think, though, we can see how words can lead to certain confusions. And there's only one way to understand it, and that is being in touch with our own awareness, being aware of our own awareness.